Good day, sir. We are Group 1 and we are here to report the physical self, heredity, and environment, which is divided into 4 categories, which, which is dominant and recessive gene, physical growth, development and maturation, environmental factors affecting the physical self, and lastly, physical self and self-concept. I will explain to you the 4 categories, but not all that but not whole definition of it. When we say heredity and environment, the human race possesses genetic components which are transmitted from generation to generation via the reproductive processes. And when we say dominant and recessive gene, it talks about the relationship between 2 versions of gene known as alleles. What is alleles? Alleles also called allelomorph. Any one of 2 or more genes that may occur alternatively at a given site on a chromosome. The second, physical growth, development, and maturation. When we say the word growth, is physical change and increase in size, and it can be measured. And from the word maturation is the development of individual and behavioral characteristics through growth. Third, environmental factors affecting the physical self. When we say environmental factors affecting the physical self, it includes things like chemical safety, air pollution, and natural disasters, all of which can have an impact on our health. These factors can be hazardous to our health since they can lead us to become ill. Finally, there's the physical self and self-concept. When we speak of the physical self, we are referring to the body, this magnificent container and intricate, highly tuned machine through which we interact with our surroundings and fellow beings. And when we speak of the self-concept, we are referring to the concept of self. Your self-concept is how you see yourself, your strengths, and your distinctive features. For example, I am a good body, or I am a kind person. And my co-reporter will go over the entire definition of physical self, heredity, and environment with you.
Physical self, heredity, and environment. So, first we're going to talk about physical self. What is physical self? Physical self is the question of mankind. The question of mankind is what makes a person, because physical self is composed of the abilities, appearance of a person. So the physical self is composed of 2, which is heredity or nature, and environment or nurture. The genes that will give us the same, like pointy nose, hairy eyebrows, and so nature or heredity. Genes and an unchangeable data or blueprint in you, in us, from birth decides everything. So the other says that heredity is an unchangeable data, and what heredity builds you is what makes you a person. So that is the meaning of heredity for physical self. That, and also other people can say, if you inherit the attitude and personality of your parents, other people will say to you that you inherit their personality because you have the same actions and the moves of your parents. So they'll see what similarities you have in your parents, but also not personalities and sickness of your genes. If your parents have a cancer on your past generation, like grandfather, there's a possibility, there's a slight chance that you will inherit the genes of that sickness. So second is the environment or nurture. So they say that this factor is what builds you a person is the environment. So a popular theory that it is the stuff around us, like our upbringing, that makes us us. So there's a big difference about nature and nurture, or heredity and environment, because heredity comes from the lessons or inheritance from our parents, and environment, there's a big difference because environment has a lot of people, a lot of personalities that you will learn, and you will need to adapt the environment. So environment, an important role in the development of the personality and the other qualities in the individual. So there are different personalities in the environment. No person can be born without heredity, and genes cannot develop without proper environment. So of course there are some lessons that our parents did not teach that we can learn from the environment, like there's some of drinking alcoholic. So parents don't teach that in their kids because it is bad for the health. So if you, this is what it says, that personality and qualities, and the qualities in the individual, because individual of the person has different personalities, so they learn also different personalities in the environment, because in the environment there are a lot of people and different personalities. So environment is really different from heredity, because you are not come from or came from genes, but the people mix of personalities around you. That's what I said. There are a lot of different kinds of personalities in the environment, but the two factors are connected: heredity or nature, or nurture, because nature, it's what builds you up, and lessons about your parents, the good things, but environment is what builds you up, what nurtures you to become. Without the lessons of your parents, or you can learn from other people. So especially as humans, it depends of what we came from, and our environment will make us the type of person we are right now. The heredity in environment is affected by nutrition, love, problems, depression, that enhances our development in ourselves. So these factors, the heredity and environment, will make us a mature person, because these are lessons, and these are the things that gives us knowledge. So in the end of the day, heredity and environment will teach us how to enhance the knowledge, thinking, and make us the
Dominant and recessive gene. Dominant refers to the relationship between two versions of a gene. Individuals receive two versions of each gene, known as alleles, from each parent. If the alleles of a gene are different, one allele will be expressed in the dominant gene. The effects of the other alleles, called recessive, it must. If one is dominant, the other one must be not dominant. In that case, we call it recessive. A dominant gene, or a dominant version of a gene, is a particular variant of a gene, which for a variety of reasons expresses itself more strongly all by itself than any other versions of the gene which the person is carrying, and in this case, the recessive. Now it usually refers to inheritance pattern, frequently used in conjunction with a Punnett square, where if an individual has two versions of a gene, and one is observed to frequently be transferred from one generation to another, then it is called dominant. Biochemically, what is going on in this case is that the genetic variation, for variety for reasons, can either induce a function in a cell, which is either very advantageous or very detrimental, which the other version of the gene cannot cover up or compensate for. In that case, you're going to have a dominant mutation, and not dominant mutation can be benign. It can refer to eye color of one sort or another. That can become a dominant mutation, or I can refer to a disease. The example of dominant and recessive gene is if an allele of a gene is said to be dominant when it effectively overrules the other recessive allele. Eye color and blood groups are both examples for dominant recessive gene relationships. You can determine if a gene is dominant or recessive the way people write out dominant and recessive traits is the dominant one gets a capital letter and the recessive one a lowercase letter. So for eye color, brown is big letter B and blue is small letter b. As I said above, people have two versions of each gene, so you can be double big letter B, small letter b, or double small letter b, double big letter B, and big letter B and a small letter b. Have brown eyes, double small letter B, blue eyes.
Physical growth refers to the increases in height and weight and other body changes as kids mature. So, for example, ang bata kay matubuan og ngipon, ang bata kay matubuan og buhok. Nya, hangtod sa pag-puberty sa bata, sa una kay putot pa kayo siya, karon ni taas na. Nya, kato siya, pag-agi niya puberty, magka-pubic hair siya. Then, kana siya, mo na siya example sa physical growth, ang kausaban sa ato ang lawas physically. What is maturation? Maturation is the process of becoming mature, and it is also the process of learning to cope and react in an emotionally appropriate way. So here, as a person, makaingon ka nga, usa ka mature nga tao, kung ikaw mismo, kay bawa ka nga, responsibilidad ka sa imong action. For example, sa maturation kay, imong grado pag prelim kay 5.0, which means hagbong or yana. Then, sa midterm, dapat maningkamot ka para di ka mahagbong, para di ka ma-drop or re-enroll. Then, mo na siya, maningkamot juga. Di kay ma-discourage ka sa imong failure. Maturation is the development of individual and behavioral characteristics through growth. Akong i-take note dere, depende na sa usa ka tawo kung ganahan siya mahimog mature o ganahan siya responsible sa iyang action. Dili kay dako niyang edad pasabot na mature na siya. Nay uban immature. Then other perspective or example aning maturation about sa bata kay kung 9 years old nga nagduwa-duwa niya imong badlongon, dili jud na siya mutuman si mong bandar kay bata pa man, di jud ka ma-expect nga mature na siya. An example of maturation is becoming an adult with a career and other responsibilities. So kita makarelate ani kay college naman ta. Pero katong bata pa ta, dili jud na to responsibilidad nga mangitag kaon, manilhig, manghugas og plato, manglungag, Di dyan na responsibilidad nato sa katong bata, pagbata nato. Pero karon dako na ta, dapat mo tabang na ta sa balay. Because as we grow older man God, we will gain consciousness. Kibaw na ta mauwaw. Anong mga bata, di na sila kibaw mo mauwaw. Wala na sila pakialam sa kalibutan.
Environmental factors affecting physical self. Since the earliest time, humans have needed to be sensitive to their surroundings to survive, which means that we have an innate awareness of our environment and seek out environments with certain qualities. Thus, there are many factors that affect the physical self by environmental factors. One of these is air pollution. Exposed to high levels of air pollution can cause a variety of adverse health outcomes. It increases the risk of respiratory infections, heart disease, and lung cancer. The environment can influence mood. For example, the results of several research studies reveal that rooms with bright light, both natural and artificial, can improve health outcomes such as depression, agitation, and sleep. Stress is an important medical consideration, in creating an environment that reduces stress is a key piece of improving health outcomes.
So, what are the 5 factors in the environmental factors that affect the physical self? So the first one is the temperature, followed by food, pollutants, population density, and the last is the parasite. So what is temperature? Temperature is among the most pervasive and important physical factors that in the environment of an organism. Properties such as viscosity or fluidity, and it changes in state from solid, liquid to gas, but it depends upon the temperature, because the diffusion rate increases as temperature increases, because the particles are moving faster. So the next one is the food. So we all know that food comes from the package size, plate shape, lighting, socializing, and variety are only of a few of the environmental factors that can influence the consumption volume of food far more than the most people realize. So that is the food. So the next one is the pollutants. So the environmental of the pollutant is triggered by the introduction of harmful materials such as gaseous pollutants, toxic metals, and particulate matter, are known as the PM, into the atmosphere, sewage, industrial influence, agricultural runoffs, and electronic waste into the water bodies, and activities such as mining. So the next one is the population density. So the density dependent factors include the environmental resources needed by the individuals of a pollution, competition for food, water, and shelter. Result as the population density increases, because the survival, health, and reproduction of individuals will be affected if they cannot acquire the basic requirements of life. So the last but not the least is the parasite. Both rapid and gradual changes of the environment can modify the host immune responses. Parasite virulence, the specificity of their interactions. They will hereby change the post-parasite revolutionary trajectories and the potential for speculation in both the host and the parasite. So that is all. Thank you. What are the 3 examples of the environmental factors that affect the physical self? So the first one is heredity, followed by the quality of the environment, and the last is the health care of the environment. How does heredity affect the physical self? So all the traits and properties that are passed along biologically from both parents to child. To some degree, this determines your general level of health. You inherit the physical traits from your parents, such as the color of your hair, eyes, shape of your nose and ears, as well as your body type and size.
So the next is the quality of the environment. How the environment affects to the physical self. The environment can influence the people's behavior and motivation to act. The environment can influence mood. For example, the result of several research studies reveals that room with bright light, both natural and artificial, can improve the health outcomes such as depression, agitation, and sleep. So the last is the healthcare. How healthcare affects the physical environment. A number of specific environmental issues can impede the human health and wellness. These issues include chemical pollution, air pollution, climate change, disease-causing microbes, and the lack of access to healthcare. So, why is the environment important to your overall physical health? For physical environment can affect our ability and that of our families and neighbors to live a long life and healthy lives. The clean air and safe water are necessary for good health. The water contaminated with chemicals, pesticides, or other contaminants can lead to illness, infection, and increase of cancer. That is all. Thank you.
The physical self refers to the body, this marvelous container and complex fine-tuned machine with which we interface with our environment and fellow beings. The physical self is the concrete dimension, the tangible aspect of the person that can be directly observed and examined. Physical concept is the individual's perception of themselves in areas of physical ability and appearance. Physical ability includes concepts such as physical strength and endurance, while appearance refers to attractiveness of body image.
Self-concept is how you perceive your behavior, abilities, and unique characteristic. For example, beliefs such as I am a good friend or I am a kind person are part of an overall self-concept. At its most basic, self-concept is a collection of beliefs one holds about oneself and the responses of others. It is more about what you think about yourself as you are, whether you believe what you yourself is capable of achieving, or what yourself can do. It is stated that your self-concept is how you perceive or view yourself. Either it is your behavior or characteristics, abilities. To put it in your real life situations, we could say that when you decided to get a goal or dream about achieving something in your life, you'll tell yourself that, well, I am capable of achieving this. My skills are for this kind of things. That is an example of a self-concept. Self-concept is a list of an inner perception or views about yourself that you think you are able to do or perform. For example, Hitler is responsible for great genocide and a world war. You might have asked why I put him as an example of a self-concept. Well, Hitler knows he is capable of great violence, mass destruction, and a horrifying genocide. He knows his capabilities, and that is an example of a great self-concept applied in real life. Self-concept has an ability to cheer you up or drag you down. It can cheer us up when we know that we have great capabilities, and in other half, it could drag you down when you feel that you yourself isn't capable of something. Self-concept is like how we know ourselves, how we think about ourselves, for we are the only one that knows ourselves too well, and that is what is self-concept.